December 24th, 1944. 11:47 a.m. Ardennes Forest, Belgium. Oberfeldwebel Heinrich Müller sits frozen inside 68 tons of immobile steel. Outside, 3 American M4 Shermans circle like wolves around a wounded bear. His King Tiger, Panzer No. 332, the most powerful tank ever built, sits dead in a Belgian forest clearing. Not from enemy fire, from a broken transmission. Again, the gun still works. The armor is impenetrable, but the tank cannot move. In 4 hours, Müller knows, American infantry will arrive with satchel charges. His crew of 5 will either surrender or die inside what was supposed to be the Wehrmacht's ultimate weapon. The temperature inside is -3 degrees Celsius. Fuel has run out, trying to restart the engine. Radio operator Franz Becker is 20 years old. From Heidelberg, he keeps looking at a photograph of his mother. Before we continue with Heinrich Müller's incredible story, we need your help to keep these forgotten heroes alive. If you're already hooked by what you're hearing, hit that like button right now. It tells YouTube to share this with more people who care about real history. Subscribe to this channel so you never miss another story of courage and innovation from World War II. And here's something we love. Drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Your country, your city. We have viewers from Buenos Aires to Berlin, from Manila to Montreal. Are you a veteran? Did your grandfather serve? Do you have a connection to this war? We want to hear from you. Now back to the Ardennes Forest, December 1944, where Heinrich Müller was trapped inside Nazi Germany's most expensive mistake. Heinrich Müller was born in 1919 in Solingen, a small industrial town famous for its steel mills. His father worked in a factory that manufactured railway equipment. Heinrich grew up understanding weight distribution, stress points, and mechanical failure. At 17, he was apprenticed to a locomotive repair shop. He could diagnose engine problems by sound alone, a skill that would later save his life more than once. When Germany invaded Poland in 1939, Heinrich was 20 years old. He volunteered for the Panzer divisions because he wanted to work with machines, not march through mud with a rifle. The army assigned him to Panzer III tanks, reliable, mobile, effective, 22 tons, maximum speed 37 kilometers per hour on roads. The Panzer III could maneuver through forests, cross weak bridges, and retreat quickly when necessary. Heinrich was good at his job. By 1942, he was a tank commander in North Africa. He survived El Alamein because when his Panzer III's engine started making a specific rattling sound, he recognized a crankshaft bearing failure and ordered an immediate engine swap. His tank was operational when Rommel ordered the retreat. 12 other commanders ignored similar warnings. Their tanks died in the desert. In late 1943, Heinrich received new orders. Returned to Germany for special training on a revolutionary new tank, the Panzerkampfwagen 6 Aus B, the King Tiger. Heinrich saw it for the first time at the Henschel factory in Kassel. The machine looked like something from a propaganda film. The turret alone weighed 11 tons. The frontal armor was 180 millimeters thick, twice that of any Allied tank. The ATT Mimitimi KWK-43 gun could penetrate enemy armor from 300-500 meters away. American and British tanks had to get within 500 meters for any chance of penetration. The King Tiger was, on paper, invincible. But Heinrich Müller noticed something immediately. Something the designers and generals celebrating this steel monster had overlooked. The tank was too heavy, not just heavy, catastrophically heavy. 68 tons, more than 3 times the weight of the Panzer III that had saved Heinrich's life in Africa. The engine was a Maybach HL-230, the same engine used in the lighter Panther tank that weighed only 45 tons. Simple mathematics told Heinrich this was wrong. The power-to-weight ratio was insufficient. The transmission would be under constant stress, but nobody wanted to hear it. Müller, his training officer, said, "You're thinking like a mechanic. Think like a soldier. This tank is a fortress. It doesn't need to run fast. Between October 1943 and March 1944, Heinrich trained on the King Tiger. During that time, he watched 17 tanks break down during exercises, not from combat, from movement, transmission failures, final drive failures, suspension collapses. The tracks, each 800 millimeters wide, would break under the tank's own weight on uneven ground. Then came the fuel problem. The King Tiger consumed 860 liters of gasoline per 100 kilometers on roads. In rough terrain, nearly 2,000 liters. By 1944, Germany was desperately short of fuel. Heinrich did the math. A King Tiger with full tanks had an operational range of about 120 kilometers cross-country. Then it became a stationary pillbox. The bridges were another issue. Most European bridges were built for civilian traffic. Trucks, cars, civilian tanks from the 1930s weighing 20 tons maximum. Wehrmacht engineers calculated that 73% of bridges in France, Belgium, and the Netherlands could not support a King Tiger's weight. Special bridge-laying vehicles had to accompany every King Tiger unit. This made rapid advances impossible. But the worst problem was one Heinrich discovered by accident. During a training exercise near Paderborn in February 1944, Heinrich's King Tiger threw a track while turning on muddy ground. Standard procedure. Use the tank's own engine to reposition the track, but the track weighed 800 kilograms. The crew couldn't lift it manually. They needed a recovery vehicle, an 18-ton Berger Panther, specifically designed to repair heavy tanks. But the Berger Panther was with another unit 40 kilometers away. Heinrich and his crew sat in the mud for 11 hours waiting for recovery. In combat, 11 hours is death. Heinrich wrote a report recommending the King Tiger program be cancelled in favor of producing more reliable medium tanks. His report was ignored. By April 1944, Germany had committed to producing 500 King Tigers. The cost per tank was 300,000 Reichsmarks, 3 times the cost of a Panzer IV. Germany's entire industrial capacity was being redirected toward a tank that couldn't reliably move. On May 8, 1944, Heinrich met Kurt Seidel. Kurt was from Munich, 23 years old, son of a brewery owner. Kurt wanted to return to Munich after the war and take over his father's business. He and Heinrich became friends quickly, 2 realists surrounded by fanatics who believed the King Tiger would win the war. They shared cigarettes and complained about regulations. They planned to visit Kurt's family brewery together when the madness ended. Kurt was assigned to Heinrich's platoon in June 1944, just after the Allied invasion of Normandy. On August 19, 1944, near Falaise, France, Kurt's King Tiger broke down while retreating from American forces. Transmission failure. The tank was immobilized on a narrow road, blocking the retreat route for 7 other vehicles. Kurt followed procedure. He ordered his crew to abandon the tank and destroy it with demolition charges to prevent capture. But Kurt went back inside. One of his crew members, the loader, was trapped under ammunition racks that had collapsed during the breakdown. Kurt went back to free him. American artillery hit the tank while Kurt was inside. The loader survived. Kurt Seidel died at 2:40 p.m., 3 kilometers outside Falaise. He was 23 years old. His body was never recovered. Heinrich learned about Kurt's death from another tank commander who witnessed it. Heinrich requested permission to write to Kurt's family. Permission denied. Security regulations. Heinrich was ordered to focus on his mission. The mission was simple: keep his King Tiger operational at any cost. Between August 1944 and December 1944, Heinrich commanded 3 different King Tigers. All 3 were lost, none to enemy fire. King Tiger number 301 broke down outside Aachen in September. Final drive failure. The tank was abandoned and destroyed by its crew. King Tiger number 318 ran out of fuel near Metz in October. Heinrich's unit was advancing too quickly for the supply trucks to keep up. The tank had to be abandoned. American forces captured it intact 2 days later. King Tiger No. 332, Heinrich's current tank, was assigned to him in November 1944 for the Ardennes offensive. Hitler's last desperate gamble: break through American lines, reach Antwerp, split the Allied armies. The King Tigers would spearhead the attack, but Heinrich Müller wasn't celebrating his new assignment. He was already calculating how many kilometers the tank could travel before mechanical failure. His estimate: 180 kilometers maximum. The distance from the German border to Antwerp: 240 kilometers. What Heinrich didn't know was that American intelligence had already identified the King Tiger's weakness. Allied commanders had issued simple orders: don't engage King Tigers directly. Wait. The tanks will break down on their own. Then destroy them with artillery or airstrikes while they're immobilized. The Americans understood what German high command refused to accept. The King Tiger was defeating itself. December 16th, 1944. 5:30 a.m. Ardennes Forest, opening day of the offensive. Heinrich's King Tiger crosses the Belgian border as part of Kampfgruppe Peiper, a battle group spearheading the attack. The forest roads are narrow, muddy, covered in ice. The King Tiger's tracks slip constantly. Fuel consumption is catastrophic, nearly 500 liters per 100 kilometers in these conditions. By noon on the first day, 3 King Tigers in Heinrich's company have broken down. Not from combat, from terrain. One threw a track on a sharp turn. One suffered engine overheating while climbing a steep hill. One broke through a wooden bridge. The structure collapsed under 68 tons and became stuck in a frozen stream. Heinrich's tank is still running, barely. He can hear the transmission groaning, a metallic grinding that reminds him of the sound a bearing makes 3 hours before catastrophic failure. On December 18th, Heinrich's platoon encounters American forces near Stavelot. 4 M4 Sherman tanks at a crossroads blocking the advance. The tactical situation is exactly what King Tiger designers imagined: a frontal confrontation where armor and gun superiority would dominate. Heinrich orders his gunner to fire. Range: 800 meters. The 80-meter shell travels faster than sound. The first Sherman explodes instantly. The shell penetrated the front armor, detonated the ammunition. The second Sherman tries to retreat. Heinrich's gunner fires again. Another hit. The remaining 2 Shermans disappear behind buildings. 4 minutes, 2 kills. 0 damage to Heinrich's tank. The American shells can't penetrate King Tiger armor at this range. But Heinrich knows the truth. This isn't victory. This is fuel consumption. Each 80-meter shell weighs 20 kilograms. The tank carries only 48 shells. Fuel reserves are dropping below 40%. The nearest German fuel depot is 80 kilometers behind the front lines, and American forces have cut several supply routes. Heinrich radios his company commander: "We need fuel resupply immediately." The response: "Continue advance. Resupply will reach you at nightfall." The resupply never comes. By December 20th, Heinrich's King Tiger is operating on fumes. Fuel gauge shows 8%. Range: maybe 20 kilometers. The transmission is making violent grinding sounds. Oil pressure is fluctuating. Heinrich orders his crew to reduce speed, to conserve fuel, and reduce mechanical stress. This creates a new problem. The King Tiger becomes a moving roadblock. Faster vehicles, half-tracks, trucks, lighter tanks, are stuck behind Heinrich's crawling fortress. The entire offensive is moving at King Tiger's speed, which means the offensive is moving too slowly. On December 21st, Heinrich receives orders to abandon the main advance and take a parallel forest road to reduce congestion. The road is unmarked on military maps. Heinrich suspects it's a logging road, not designed for military traffic. He objects. Orders are repeated: take the forest road or face court-martial for insubordination. Heinrich takes the forest road. The road is worse than he imagined. Deep mud mixed with ice. tree roots creating uneven terrain. The King Tiger's 800mm tracks sink into the soft ground. The engine temperature rises. Fuel consumption spikes. The tank is burning gasoline just to avoid getting stuck. On December 23rd, at 7:15 p.m., the inevitable happens. A loud crack. The tank lurches. The driver screams, "Transmission failure." Heinrich Müller's King Tiger stops moving. They are 12 kilometers inside enemy territory. No friendly forces in sight. Radio contact is intermittent. The terrain interferes with signals. Fuel remaining, 3%. Even if they could repair the transmission, they don't have enough fuel to return to German lines. Heinrich orders the crew to dig defensive positions around the tank. The gun still works. The tank becomes a stationary fortress. They have ammunition. They have some food. They can wait for rescue or reinforcements. But Heinrich knows the statistics. In the entire Ardennes offensive, over 40 King Tigers will break down before being destroyed by enemy action. Recovery vehicles are overwhelmed. Fuel shortages are critical. Wehrmacht doctrine says, if a tank can't move and can't be recovered within 6 hours, destroy it and evacuate the crew. 6 hours is not enough time. Heinrich decides to wait longer. December 24th, 1944. Morning. Heinrich's crew has been inside the immobilized King Tiger for 14 hours. The temperature inside drops to -5 degrees. They burn small pieces of wood from the forest to create minimal heat. Carefully, because smoke could attract enemy attention, they ration food, 1 piece of bread per man, shared. Water from melted snow. Franz Becker, the radio operator, is the youngest, 20 years old, from Heidelberg. He keeps looking at a photograph of his mother. His hands shake, not from cold, from fear. He joined the Wehrmacht 6 months ago. This is his first real combat situation. Günter Wolf. The gunner is 31. Veteran of the Eastern Front. He's seen worse situations and survived. He cleans the gun mechanism obsessively. It's his way of staying calm. Otto Kraus, the loader, is 24, from Hamburg. Before the war, he worked in his uncle's bakery. He keeps making jokes nobody laughs at. Nervous energy. Paul Schmidt, the driver, is 27. He's furious. "I told you this would happen," he keeps saying. "I told you the transmission couldn't handle the terrain. Nobody listens." Heinrich sits in the commander's position, scanning the forest through his periscope. Visibility is limited. Heavy snow started falling at dawn. This is good and bad. Good because it hides them. Bad because it makes rescue less likely. At 9:20 a.m., Heinrich spots movement through the trees. 3 American M4 Sherman tanks advancing slowly through the snow. They haven't spotted the King Tiger yet. The white snow provides some camouflage for the German tank's dark green paint. Heinrich whispers orders to his crew. "Stay silent, don't move, maybe they'll pass." The Shermans stop 400 meters away. One of them is turning its turret, scanning the forest. American commanders are cautious. They know King Tigers are in this area. Then one of the Sherman commanders spots it. The massive silhouette half hidden in trees, the distinctive long barrel of the 88mm gun. The American tanks immediately reverse, moving back to cover. They're not going to engage directly. Standard Allied doctrine: don't fight King Tigers frontally. Wait for artillery or air support. Heinrich knows what's coming. The Americans will call for artillery. Heavy shells will rain down on his position. The King Tiger's armor can withstand direct hits from most shells, but the crew can't survive indefinitely inside a tank being pounded by artillery. Eventually, shock waves cause internal injuries. Eventually, a lucky hit penetrates a weak point. Eventually, you run out of luck. He has one option: negotiate surrender. His crew will become prisoners of war. They'll survive. The war is clearly lost. Anyone with eyes can see that. Surrendering now means living to see 1945. But there's a problem. Otto Kraus, the loader, is 17 years old, not 24. He lied about his age to join the Wehrmacht. His papers say he's 24. But Heinrich knows the truth. Otto confessed one night after too much schnapps. If they surrender and American intelligence discovers Otto is underage, there could be complications. The Geneva Convention has specific protections for underage soldiers, but also specific prosecutions for commanders who recruited them. And there's another problem. Paul Schmidt, the driver, has a suicide pill, a cyanide capsule issued to tank crews in case of capture. Schmidt has said multiple times he won't become a prisoner. He'd rather die. Heinrich faces an impossible calculation. Surrender means 4 of them probably survive, but maybe not all 5. Stay and fight means all 5 probably die, but maybe, small chance, they get rescued. At 11:47 a.m., the situation changes. One of the American Shermans advances again, moving carefully through the trees. It stops 300 meters away, hull down behind a fallen log. The Sherman's turret is exposed. The rest is protected. It's a challenge. The American commander is testing whether the King Tiger is operational or abandoned. Gunther Wolf looks at Heinrich. We can kill that Sherman easily. 1 shot. Heinrich knows this is true. At 300 meters, the 80-mm gun will penetrate the Sherman's armor like paper, but firing reveals their position definitively, and they only have 41 shells remaining. Every shot is precious. Hold fire, Heinrich orders. The Sherman waits. 5 minutes pass, 10 minutes. The American commander is patient. Then Franz Becker whispers urgently, Commander, radio contact, it's Hauptmann Dietrich. Heinrich grabs the radio headset. Captain Dietrich commands the company, or what's left of it. Müller, report status. Immobilized. Transmission failure. Surrounded by American forces, requesting immediate recovery. Static on the line, then recovery is impossible. All Berger Panthers are engaged elsewhere. Can you make it to German lines on your own? Negative. We have no mobility and 3% fuel. More static. Then follow protocol. Destroy the tank and evacuate on foot. Heinrich looks at his crew. Evacuate on foot means walking through 12 kilometers of enemy-controlled forest in winter, with American patrols everywhere. Their chances of making it back are maybe 20%. Understood, Heinrich says. But he doesn't move. What Hauptmann Dietrich doesn't know, what German High Command doesn't know, is that dozens of King Tiger crews are facing identical situations across the Ardennes. The offensive is collapsing not because of American resistance, but because of German logistics. Tanks are running out of fuel. Tanks are breaking down faster than they can be repaired. Recovery vehicles can't keep up. Supply columns can't penetrate American lines. The King Tiger, the wonder weapon, the invincible fortress, is destroying the offensive from within. December 24th, 1944. 1:15 p.m. Heinrich makes a decision that will haunt him for the rest of his life, but that will also save his crew. He orders Paul Schmidt to set demolition charges inside the tank. Standard protocol: thermite grenades in the engine compartment, explosive charges near the ammunition storage. The goal is to completely destroy the tank, so Americans can't capture it intact. But Heinrich adds something non-standard. He tells his crew to prepare for immediate evacuation, but not on foot. They're going to use the situation to their advantage. Here's what we do, Heinrich explains. We set the charges for 20-minute delay. We evacuate the tank, but we don't run. We surrender to the Americans. Paul Schmidt immediately protests. I'm not surrendering. Heinrich looks at him. Schmidt, you have a wife in Dresden. You have a daughter you've never met. She's 7 months old. This war is over. Do you want to die in a forest for a tank that doesn't work? I'd rather die than become a prisoner. You don't mean that. I have the pill. Heinrich moves quickly. He grabs Schmidt's hand, forces it open, takes the cyanide capsule. Schmidt tries to fight, but Heinrich is stronger. You're going to survive this. All of you are going to survive. Otto Kraus starts crying. He's 17. He's terrified. They'll shoot us when they find out I lied about my age. No, they won't, Heinrich says. Americans follow the Geneva Convention. You're a prisoner of war. They'll feed you. They'll keep you warm. And in 6 months, maybe sooner, Germany will surrender. You'll go home." Franz Becker asks quietly, "What about you, Commander?" "I'm surrendering with you." At 1:35 p.m., Heinrich sets the demolition charges. 20 minutes, they gather what they can carry: identification papers, photographs, personal items. No weapons. Heinrich insists, no weapons means clear surrender. At 1:42 p.m., all 5 crew members exit the King Tiger. They stand in front of the tank, hands raised, as the American Sherman 400 meters away watches them through binoculars. There's a tense moment. The Americans could open fire. Killing surrendering soldiers is a war crime, but it happens. Then the Sherman's hatch opens. An American lieutenant climbs out carrying a white flag of his own. He approaches slowly, carbine rifle ready but not aimed. The lieutenant is maybe 25 years old, tall. He speaks some German. "You're surrendering?" "Ja," Heinrich says. "Tank is kaput. We have no fuel, no ammunition." It's a lie, they have ammunition, but Heinrich wants to seem as non-threatening as possible. "Any wounded?" "No." The American lieutenant studies Heinrich's face. "You're the commander?" "Ja." "You speak English?" "A little." The lieutenant switches to English. "My name is Lieutenant David Morrison from Wisconsin. You're now prisoners of the 7th Armored Division. You'll be treated according to the Geneva Convention. No harm will come to you if you cooperate." Heinrich nods. "We cooperate." At exactly 1:55 p.m., the demolition charges inside the King Tiger detonate. A massive explosion tears through the tank's interior. Flames erupt from the hatches. Black smoke rises into the winter sky. The 88mm gun barrel warps from the heat. The once invincible fortress becomes a burning wreck. Lieutenant Morrison watches the fire. "That was one hell of a tank." Heinrich responds quietly, "It was the worst tank." Morrison looks surprised. "Worst? That thing scared the hell out of us. Our shells just bounce off it." "It doesn't matter if shells bounce off when the tank destroys itself." Heinrich gestures at the burning wreck. "No fuel. Transmission breaks every 100 kilometers. Too heavy for bridges. Too slow for advances. Too expensive to build. We could have built 5 Panzer-Fours for the cost of 1 King Tiger. 5 reliable tanks instead of 1 broken fortress." Morrison considers this. "So why did you build it?" "Because our leaders thought bigger is always better. They wanted a wonder weapon. They got a wonder breakdown." American soldiers arrived to escort the German prisoners to a rear area. As they walk through the snow, Heinrich looks back one last time at the burning King Tiger. 68 tons of steel, 300,000 Reichsmarks, thousands of hours of engineering, all destroyed by something as mundane as a broken transmission. Heinrich thinks about Kurt Seidel, dead in another King Tiger outside Falaise. He thinks about the 17 tanks he watched break down during training. He thinks about the resources wasted building these machines when Germany desperately needed fuel, food, and ammunition for infantry. Franz Becker walks beside Heinrich. The young radio operator is shaking. From cold or relief, it's hard to tell. "Commander, we're alive." "Yes." "Will they really treat us well?" "Yes. Americans are not barbarians." "What happens now?" Heinrich has no answer. What happens now is waiting. Waiting for the war to end. Waiting to go home. Waiting to rebuild from ruins. What Heinrich Müller doesn't know is how many other King Tiger crews are surrendering at this exact moment across the Ardennes. Between December 16th and December 25th, 1944, the Wehrmacht deploys approximately 60 King Tigers in the offensive. By Christmas Day, 31 are destroyed or abandoned, not from combat, from mechanical failure, fuel shortage, or impossible terrain. The Americans capture 13 intact King Tigers simply by waiting for them to break down. Allied intelligence officers interview captured crews and reach the same conclusion Heinrich already understood. The King Tiger was Germany's most expensive military mistake. The American POW camp is near Liège, Belgium. It's a temporary facility, tents surrounded by barbed wire. Conditions are basic but survivable. Food is minimal but regular. Medical care is available. The guards follow Geneva Convention rules strictly. Heinrich and his crew arrive on Christmas Eve. They're searched, documented, photographed. Otto Kraus's false age goes unnoticed. The Americans don't care that much. They're processing thousands of prisoners. One teenager with fake papers isn't a priority. On Christmas Day, American soldiers distribute Red Cross packages to prisoners. Heinrich's package contains cigarettes, chocolate, canned meat and soap. It's more luxury than he's seen in months. German logistics had collapsed by late 1944. Soldiers at the front were often hungry and cold. In the tent that night, Heinrich shares his chocolate with his crew. They sit in silence trying to process survival. They're alive. The war continues without them. That knowledge feels strange. Guilt mixed with relief. Paul Schmidt speaks first. "Commander, I need to say something. Thank you for taking the pill. I would have used it. I was scared." Heinrich nods. "We all were scared. But you saved us. I saved one tank crew. Thousands are still dying out there." Franz Becker asks, "Do you think Germany will win?" Everyone knows the answer. But Heinrich says it clearly. "No. We've already lost. It's just a matter of how many more people die before it's official." In January 1945, Heinrich learns that Kampfgruppe Peiper, the unit he was attached to, suffered catastrophic losses in the Ardennes. Most of the King Tigers were destroyed or captured. Peiper himself barely escaped encirclement. The offensive achieved nothing except delaying the inevitable by a few weeks. By March 1945, Heinrich is transferred to a larger POW camp in France. Conditions are worse there. Overcrowding, food shortages, disease. But he survives. His crew survives. They're separated. Enlisted men go to different sections than NCOs. But Heinrich hears occasional news. Everyone is still alive. On May 8, 1945, Germany surrenders unconditionally. The war in Europe ends. Heinrich is 26 years old. He's been a prisoner for 5 months. He'll remain a prisoner for another 18 months before being released. In November 1946, Heinrich Müller returns to Germany. Solingen is partially destroyed by Allied bombing. His father's factory is rubble. His mother is dead. She died during an air raid in 1944. His younger sister survived and is living with relatives in the countryside. Heinrich finds work as a mechanic in a civilian repair shop. Not locomotives this time, cars and trucks. The work is similar. Engines are engines. Metal is metal. He's good at it. In 1948, Heinrich marries Anna Weber, a woman from his hometown. They have 3 children, 2 daughters and a son. Heinrich never talks about the war with them. When they ask, he says, "I was a tank commander. The tanks broke down a lot, that's all." He never mentions the King Tiger. He never mentions Kurt Seidel. He never mentions the moment he decided to surrender rather than die for a broken machine. In 1952, Heinrich receives a letter from Paul Schmidt. Schmidt is alive, living in Dresden, working as a carpenter. He thanks Heinrich again for saving his life. He says his daughter is now 7 years old and wants to be a teacher. Without Heinrich's decision, she would have grown up without a father. Heinrich writes back. They maintain occasional correspondence for years. In the 1970s, a British military historian named James Ashford begins researching the failure of the Ardennes offensive. He reviews thousands of German documents, interviews hundreds of veterans, analyzes battlefield reports. Ashford reaches a controversial conclusion. The King Tiger tank was the single biggest tactical mistake of Nazi Germany's late war strategy. His research shows that Germany spent approximately 450 million Reichsmarks producing 489 King Tigers between 1944 and 1945. For that same cost, Germany could have produced two 445 Panzer IV tanks, reliable, mobile, proven designs. More importantly, Ashford calculates that mechanical failure destroyed more King Tigers than enemy action. Of the 489 King Tigers produced, approximately 250 were lost to mechanical breakdowns, fuel shortages, or abandonment. Only 120 were destroyed by direct enemy fire. The remaining 119 were captured intact or surrendered. Ashford tries to interview King Tiger veterans. Many refuse to talk. The King Tiger represents embarrassment, a symbol of Nazi Germany's combination of technological ambition and practical incompetence. But in 1978, Ashford locates Heinrich Müller in Zollingen. Heinrich is 59 years old, still working as a mechanic. Ashford explains his research and asks if Heinrich will speak with him. Heinrich agrees. Over 2 days, he tells Ashford everything. The training breakdowns, Kurt Seidel's death, the transmission failure in the Ardennes, the decision to surrender, all of it, Ashford asks. Why did German commanders continue deploying King Tigers when the mechanical problems were so obvious? Heinrich thinks for a long moment. Because admitting failure meant admitting the war was lost. The King Tiger was propaganda as much as it was a weapon. It was supposed to prove German superiority. Accepting that it didn't work meant accepting that we weren't superior, that we were losing. But you knew it didn't work. Many of us knew, mechanics knew, tank crews knew, but we weren't making decisions. Generals and politicians were, and they couldn't accept reality. Ashford publishes his research in 1981 in a book titled The Tiger's Broken Teeth, How Germany's Wonder Weapons Lost the War. Heinrich's story features prominently. The book receives mixed reviews. Some historians agree, some defend the King Tiger as a tactical success, but the evidence supports Heinrich's perspective. By every practical measure, cost, reliability, tactical mobility, strategic impact, the King Tiger was inferior to cheaper, lighter, more reliable alternatives. Heinrich Müller dies on March 15, 1993, at age 74. His obituary in the local Solingen newspaper makes no mention of his military service. It describes him as a skilled mechanic, devoted husband, loving father, and grandfather of 6. Nobody at his funeral mentions the King Tiger. In 2003, a small museum in Belgium opens an exhibit about the Ardennes offensive. One of the artifacts is the burned-out hulk of a King Tiger tank recovered from the forest near Stavelot. Museum records identify it as Panzer No. 332, Heinrich Müller's tank. The museum placard reads, "This Panzerkampfwagen 6 Aus FB King Tiger was abandoned by its crew on December 24, 1944, due to mechanical failure. It represents one of dozens of German heavy tanks lost during the offensive, not from combat, but from logistical collapse. The King Tiger, feared by Allied soldiers, was ultimately defeated by its own design flaws. Visitors take photographs. Children climb on the decayed turret. The 82mm gun barrel, still warped from the 1944 demolition charges, points uselessly at the sky. Nobody reading the placard knows about Heinrich Müller. Nobody knows about his decision to surrender instead of die. Nobody knows about the chocolate he shared on Christmas Day, or the letter from Paul Schmidt, or the 26 years he spent fixing engines in a civilian repair shop. History remembers the King Tiger as Nazi Germany's most fearsome tank. History forgets the men who knew it was actually its worst mistake, but stories like Heinrich's matter because they reveal a truth that official histories often miss. War isn't won by the biggest weapons or the thickest armor. War is won by logistics, by reliability, by practical engineering over propaganda. The King Tiger looked invincible. But looking invincible and being effective are completely different things. If this story moved you, hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel to hear more forgotten stories from World War II, and tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? Do you have relatives who served in World War II? Do you work with machines and understand the frustration of poor design? These stories need people like you to keep them alive. Thank you for listening. Thank you for remembering.